Hey, what's up, guys? It's your good friend Airsoft Man 819 here again with yet another console review. Today I'm going to be reviewing one of my absolute personal favorites, the NEC PC Engine and PC Engine CD-ROM. I kind of debated with myself whether or not I should review them separately, review the PC Engine console and then the CD-ROM attachment. But I don't know. To me, they're such an integral pair because so many good games came out for the CD-ROM that it's almost difficult to collect for the console unless you have a CD-ROM because so many games came out. At least a third of the PC Engine's library, if not half, came out on CD. And that's partially because of how early NEC introduced CD as a format for games, because the PC Engine CD is actually the first console to ever use compact disc as a storage medium, shortly followed by the Fujitsu FM Towns Marty, which was a very unsuccessful console that was very short-lived, even in Japan where it came out. A little bit of background on the PC Engine. It came out in Japan in 1987, and it was intended to compete with the Famicom. The issue is the release of the PC Engine is actually closer to the Sega Genesis and the Mega Drive than it is the Famicom. So while the PC Engine did compete with the Famicom for a short time, its main competition was the Sega Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo / Super Famicom. So that being said, the PC Engine, even though it was released here in the United States, it was completely rebranded, completely relabeled, completely reshaped. They almost tried to do the same thing with it that Nintendo did with the NES, with the Famicom, and it just didn't work. The TurboGrafx 16 kind of came too early and too late in some regards, but it did not have a unique enough library to appeal to American gamers when it came compared to Nintendo and Sega. And I honestly feel like it wasn't the quality of the games in the case of the TurboGrafx as it was to how they marketed it. I honestly believe if they would have just left it like this, it would have sold better. And some of the translations, when they took the PC Engine games and converted them from Japanese to more of a United States American sort of vibe, some of it just didn't translate well. And I honestly think that's another big reason, is that the PC Engine was really a console that was designed for the Japanese market and sold well in the Japanese market, very much like the Sega Saturn that would come later, but it just did not hit here in the United States. It just didn't. But it sold very well in Japan. Sold over 1 million consoles, I believe. I can't get I don't remember an exact number, but I think it was over 1 million. It might have been 3 or 4 million. It was not over 5 million because they only sold about 1 million of the CD-ROM consoles. And that includes the interface unit model that I have here, and also includes the Duo consoles that would come out later that included the CD-ROM drive built in. This is not that. This is the PC Engine console in an interface unit with the CD-ROM. So I have it sort of backwards because I wanted the lettering and stuff on the top cover to be straight up and down, but I'm going to go ahead and reorient this. This is honestly more like a suitcase style. You have a folding handle here. You can actually unfold and carry the console around. I actually have my own rubber feet on here right now. I'm trying to be very gentle with this. You guys have no idea how rare and freaking expensive this is. So it says down here on the bottom, NEC interface unit. Has the model number, the wattage, the type of power supply you need, made in Japan. So you have 2 buttons on the front here that say push. I'm going to set this down and we're going to push them. So you don't have to push them in very far, just a little bit, and lift up the front, tilt it up, pull this out. This is just a plastic cover that protects the consoles from dust and debris and damage. I have a EverDrive unit in here right now. Well, I should say a ROM cart. This isn't an actual EverDrive. This is a clone EverDrive, I should say. But we'll get into that later as well. I actually forgot that that was in there. Not a big deal. I was going to talk about it anyways. Oop, bumped the tripod there. Sorry guys, I'm notorious for that. I don't have my tripod oriented quite right. So on the right we have the PC Engine console itself, and on the left we have the CD unit. And these are two independent things that can connect and disconnect from the interface unit. And obviously you can see labeled up here, it also says interface unit. You also have a power LED up here, a green one. So basically when they're both hooked up together like this, the console will not communicate with the CD-ROM drive without a RAM cartridge installed into the console. So if you were to put a CD-ROM game in this and turn it on like this, nothing would happen because there's no RAM cartridge inserted into here. So basically what those cartridges did is that they expanded the RAM of the PC Engine console and allowed it to interface with the CD-ROM unit. It included a BIOS and its own BIOS and RAM expansion to communicate with the CD-ROM unit. And those cards were called system cards because while the PC Engine uses cartridges, they're not necessarily cartridges in the traditional sense. This is the Super System Card version 3.0. There was either 3 or 4 different versions of the system cards, and each iteration adds more RAM. This is the second biggest RAM cartridge for the PC Engine. The biggest being the arcade card, which adds a stupid amount of RAM. But the arcade card only supported either 9 or 10 games, not very many. So, and it itself is very rare, the arcade card. But the Super System Card 3.0 was the most popular because it added the most RAM out of the regular Super System cards, and it was more mass-produced and more readily available. So this tends to be the one everybody settles on. So we'll go ahead and open this up, and I'll show you guys what these look like. So this has all its original paperwork and everything still in here. Warranty cards and such. This is all in Japanese, so I'm just assuming here. But here's the actual Super System card in this plastic sleeve. And it's kind of hooked in here with these plastic hooks. So I'm going to unhook it from those plastic hooks, pull it out. So like I said, it does not use cartridges in the traditional sense because these are incredibly thin, more like credit cards. These are more similar to the card games that were on like the Sega Mark III or the Sega Master System, something like that. Very thin, very strong, very solidly made, very resistant to damage and water. Not necessarily resistant to dust and dirt because the edge connector is just exposed. There is nothing protecting that. So there's a reason that these little clear sleeves are included, so you can slide the cards into these sleeves and the edge connector won't tarnish or get dirty. But what makes it not a good thing also is a good thing because it makes these incredibly easy to clean. All you need is a Q-tip with some alcohol on it, just rub it against it and you're done. So very easy to clean, very easy to maintain. I just highly recommend leaving them in their case, excuse me, unless you're using them. And they even have a spot on the back to put your name. And the name of these was called Hue cards. They were called Turbo Chips in the United States, which I just don't think was a cool name. But yeah, Hue cards. So basically, to operate the CD-ROM unit, you would slide in your Super System card, arcade card, whatever card you have. Make sure it clicks. You want to push it all the way in until it clicks, because the power switch actually acts as a retainer and goes around the card to keep it from coming out while the console is on. But you do not turn the PC Engine console on immediately. To power up the interface unit first, you have a toggle switch down here. You lift this up and slide it to the right, and then this green LED will come on, and that lets you know that the interface unit is powered up and ready. And then, after you put your CD game in, obviously, you would flip this on, and it would power everything on, and you'd be ready to start your CD game. So obviously when you're playing regular games, because regular games came out on these cards, it's not just a RAM cartridge. A lot of the PC Engine's library are on these Hue cards. And if you just want to play a Hue card game, you just don't put anything in the CD-ROM, obviously. You don't put this in there, and you just stick a regular game in there and turn it on. So you basically skip all the steps that you took with the CD-ROM when you're playing a regular card. So a little bit complicated. I definitely see why it wasn't introduced in the United States in the same way, because the CD unit did come to the United States, but it came very late and had very limited releases compared to the CD unit in Japan. So a regular Hue card game looks like this. This is Galaga 88. It's a great game, one of the best versions of Galaga. A little sticker on the back here. Open this up. This one is missing its sleeve, so I just have some bubble wrap in here, but this is what an actual game looks like. A lot of the games are completely flush like this, but as you saw with the system card, it had a little bit of a bulge, because obviously the bigger the data is on the card, the thicker it needs to be. So there are some cards that are going to be a little thicker than others. But a lot of the actual games that came out were completely flush thin like this and had really cool artwork. So really fun games to collect if they were cheaper. So that's what a regular Hue card game looks like. Now we'll come over and grab a CD game. Let's see, let's grab something interesting that people might not have seen. Here we go. Terraforming. One of the best, most underrated, or should I say, not even talked about shmups on the PC Engine CD. Really rare game to find, original. There's a company that makes reprints of PC Engine games called PCE Works, and they actually make a really good reproduction of this. That's about $50. This is an original. Here's some of the artwork from the game. Just a beautiful, beautiful game. One of the most beautiful games I've ever seen. Go ahead and open this up. Very simple presentation. You just have your manual over here, CD over here. Most of the CDs are plain. Some have a little bit more flashy artwork than others. This one's just kind of a plain silver. Just your basic compact disc. Okay. So now I will go ahead and remove the consoles from the interface unit. To do that, you have this spring-loaded latch back here. I'm going to have to reach around and pull that with my right hand to release both consoles. Okay, now they're both released from the unit, interface unit. So I'll go ahead and slide the actual console out. So this is the PC Engine. Very, very tiny, pretty much fits in the palm of your hand. It's incredible how small this console is. This is compared to a bottle of Diet Mountain Dew, because that's just what I have on hand. But yeah, pretty insane. So there's your card slot. You have a single controller port, which, you know, some people were not cool with, because the Famicom had two controllers, you know, wired into the damn thing, whereas this just has a single controller port. But a lot of the games on the PC Engine are single player anyways, so this really doesn't hurt it very much. But if you wanted to play multiplayer games, and there are some on the PC Engine, it does have a decent amount, they did make multi-taps that you could buy. And they actually made controllers that had another controller port built into them to plug a second controller in to daisy chain them together. So there are several different solutions you can find to expanding your controller ports if you need to. So you have your power switch here, and like I said, I'll demonstrate this with the Clone EverDrive here. Slide this in. The power switch not only acts as a power switch, but it actually locks the cartridge or card into the console, so you can't pull it out while it's on. There's no light, at least on this, but there's a little red sticker that pops up when you turn it on to let you know it's powered on. On this side, you have your AV port. This supports composite AV. I don't think it supports S-Video, but it does support composite AV. The white PC Engine, because there's three different versions, okay, of this actual console. The original white one, which is the one that was, I think, the most popular and the one they made the most of, has an RF port right here for an RF switch. And the second model, which is the core graphics that I have here in my hand, that's gray with the blue writing, was the second that came out, and it supports composite AV. It actually uses the same plug for the AV cables as the Sega Genesis Model 1, but the plug is wired differently, so you have to buy PC Engine specific AV cables. But if you have the interface unit, it has composite built into it, so you don't need the AV cables. But if you're trying to use this independently, you need AV cables. On this side, you have your DC power input. Once again, you're not going to use this unless you are playing the PC Engine independently by itself, because the PC Engine actually draws power from the interface unit through the expansion slot in the back here, which is what this is the expansion slot. Now, there are several different things that they made you could attach to this. They made a battery backup, like memory card. They made an AV expansion module for the white PC Engine to give it composite AV on its own. And there are several other modern emulator type things that you can attach to the back of this too, that allow you to emulate disk drives and everything else. So this expansion slot on the back here ended up being pretty handy. So, and it's also obviously how the PC Engine connects to the interface unit. So this console had bad caps. That's something that's well known with the PC Engine. The interface unit, and the CD-ROM unit are known to have bad capacitors. So it's actually pretty well known for these to be fairly fragile and not work when you buy them, because the capacitors that were used in them were not good quality, and a lot of them have dried out by now. So we'll go ahead and slide this bad boy back into the interface unit. It's actually fairly a tight fit with the console, so you got to kind of push it in there pretty hard. Okay, so now we'll talk about this, which is easily one of the most expensive parts of this, and I don't want to drop it. This is the CD-ROM unit. So a cool thing about this is, even though you can't obviously play games on it independently, you can use this as a portable CD player, provided you're near a power outlet. So you have an independent volume dial on the front, and if you look, where is it? You have a headphone jack here. So, and where is it? On the back, you have, once again, DC input, and you have a line out. So you can hook this up not only to headphones and listen to it like a portable, you could hook this up to your stereo system and listen to your albums on it. So you could buy this and not even have bought the console and still have a pretty good CD player, especially for when this came out, because the PC Engine itself came out in 1987 in Japan, and in 1989 in the United States as the TurboGrafx. And they released the CD unit in Japan in 1988. It was the first console to ever play games on a CD. It was the NEC was the first people to ever use CDs as a medium for games. So this thing is literally a pioneer. I'm holding the first CD-based or disc-based console ever. And that makes it incredibly rare, because they did not make that many of these. They had a bundle where you could buy the interface unit and this together, and it also came with a system card, or you could buy this separately, and you could buy that separately, and you could buy that separately. So you could literally buy them pretty much all together, or one at a time if you didn't have the money. So you could slowly sort of upgrade your own console. So I honestly think that was a really neat concept. It's just not something I believe would have stuck here in the United States, and evidenced by the release here, it didn't stick very well. But this thing is just really cool. So, and obviously this is like your data port that connects the CD-ROM to the interface unit. It's a spring-loaded, simple design. You literally just grab the sides here and lift up. Have a metal spindle, which is actually really nice. There's your laser and everything. You also have dedicated play, stop, and skip buttons. You have a little screen here that shows what track you're on, and it also acts as an activity screen when you're playing games that lets you know that the CD-ROM drive is being accessed. So it acts as an access light or an access screen and a track screen. So pretty cool. Very simple. You just lay your game in there, close it, you're good to go. All right. Go ahead and slide this bad boy back in. Clip it together. Now it's all one unit again. So as far as the interface unit itself, the connectors on it, turn this to the side. There's your composite audio and video, and there is your power in. And both of these run the entire thing. You don't have to hook the PC Engine up to power, and you don't have to hook the CD-ROM up to power. It uses one AC adapter. Do you hear that, Sega? One AC adapter runs the whole thing. You don't need 3 or 4 AC adapters. You only need one. There's no weird cables that I have to use to connect these two or anything. One set of AV cables, one AC adapter. And they did this in 1988, years before Sega even tried it. Really cool console. One of the absolute coolest. But that's also part of the bad as far as that goes. And when we're talking controllers, I actually don't even own an original PC Engine controller. It's a 2-button controller with a D-pad and turbo switches. But the controllers are kind of difficult to find and honestly really expensive. So I bought this Polymega 6-button because they made 3 different versions of the controller for the PC Engine. They made a 2-button controller, a 3-button controller, and a 6-button. So I figured I would just get an all-in-one controller that can do everything. So not only do I have the turbo switches down here, I also have all 6 buttons. So I can play 2-button, 3-button, and 6-button games because there are games that use different controllers. And you also have a switch up here that can select between 6-button games and 2-button games because that's the majority. Most 3-button games didn't even really use 3 buttons. They used either the run or the select. And all that the 3-button controller did was map one of these two to a 3rd button. So technically speaking, there really even isn't a 3-button controller, even though they exist. There's just 2 and 6. So I would highly recommend just getting a 6-button controller and just that being your controller. And this is brand new, and I don't have to worry about it being 30 years old and all the rubber and the buttons being dried out and stuff. So you can, take a gamble on original controllers if you want. It is a good controller. I have used them. But just beware that the button membranes inside of those controllers are known to dry out and crack, and the buttons don't work right. This, however, is original. This is a turbo stick. This is very much in vein of the NES Advantage stick. It was released pretty much right alongside the PC Engine as a heavier, more arcade-like controller. It's not a micro switch joystick or anything, but it's actually pretty smooth and pretty responsive. I did put some not lithium grease, but silicone grease in there to smooth this out a little bit. Works really well. Very good turbo sliders. You can dial these babies in wherever you want. It's literally got sliders like a studio switchboard. It's crazy. And these toggle switches here activate the turbo on each side. Then you have your run and select buttons and 1 and 2. So this is a 2-button arcade stick. They also made 6-button arcade sticks for the PC Engine. This is actually an NEC produced one called the Turbo Stick. So if you're looking one of these up, look up Turbo Stick. And there's the plug if you're curious about it for the controllers. It's a DIN plug, and it's a little bit fragile. You don't want to be bending on this or yanking on this because you'll break either this or the controller port in the PC Engine, and you don't want to do that. So, as far as games are concerned, really, the PC Engine is pretty much the type of console that it is really not for everyone. As much as I personally love it and would love to recommend it to everyone, I would not be doing you guys justice or the console justice by doing that, because it is a niche console after all. Not very many of them were sold. Not a lot of people know about them. It wasn't even, in a lot of ways, this version of it wasn't even released here. So, you know, don't be surprised if you bring it up in conversation and you get weird looks, because you have to be a pretty involved retro gaming collector to even know what this thing is. But as far as the games are concerned, primarily what you're going to find on the PC Engine are shmups, or shoot 'em up games, where you're basically flying around in a spaceship, shooting aliens, just shooting things that are trying to kill you. Usually there's a boss fight at the end of the levels, and so on and so forth. Most of you guys that are watching this video should probably know what a shmup is at this point. So I said all that to say this: if you're not a hardcore shmup fan, I would steer clear of the PC Engine. There are good games on it besides shmups. There are a few good platformers. Bonk and Bonk's Revenge are both great platformers. There's also quite a few good fighting games on the PC Engine. The PC Engine version of Street Fighter 2 is pretty well regarded. And the PC Engine CD actually got its own exclusive Castlevania game, Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which is an insanely expensive and collectible game, which is another thing I'd like to get into. This is not a console to get into if you care about your money. Not only will you spend, to get this set up right here, not even including a system card, just this console with the interface unit and the two, you're looking at anywhere from $350 to $500. And games for the PC Engine tend to go for anywhere from 25 to 50, all the way up to 500 to $2,000. It's up there with the Sega Saturn as far as game prices. And a lot of the, the greatest hits, the ones everybody wants, are the games that are that expensive. Now, there are some good deals on the PC Engine. There are some good games you can get for not a lot of money. And there are ways you can get around it. I'm not going to encourage anything at all. But there are certain things you can do to bypass having to have the actual game that's $500. There are ways you can get around it. Not that I would tell you to do it or say that it's a good idea, because I don't encourage piracy. And you definitely cannot back up games for the ROM unit. You cannot do that at all. I would not recommend it. You can do it technically, but I can't encourage it. But I said all that to say this: if you're the type that you have to have the original games, you're going to spend some money. But, if you take your time and save up your money and, buy games periodically, it definitely is something you can do. And as far as shmups are concerned, the PC Engine has the absolute best. Galaga 88, which I showed you guys earlier. This is actually a pinball game. This is Alien Crush. This is a great game. There's actually a trilogy, maybe even 4 or 5 pinball games for the PC Engine that are really well known as being very good pinball games. Cybercore, an absolutely great spaceship shooter. I won't show you guys everything I've got because there's like 14 games here. By the way, it took me a year and a half to accumulate these 14 games. Dead Moon, very underrated side-scrolling shmup. Very good graphics. Then you have the Soldier series. This is Soldier Blade. But the Soldier series is a great series of shmups. I think there's several of them at this point. I couldn't even tell you how many. Hudson Soft has been making them for a long time. They even made they released a Soldier series game on the N64. That tells you how long they made these for. But Soldier Blade is usually highly regarded as one of the best shmups ever made. But this individual game right here is worth anywhere from $200 to $300. So it's to the point now where, I haven't really accumulated a lot of games for this thing because of just how expensive they are, and I have to prioritize, important things instead. But it's such a good console, and I've just cherished it so much over the past year and a half and had such a good time playing it. Not only myself, but my friends, we've all had such a good time playing it. But I just cannot recommend it to the average retro gamer. It's just too expensive and hard to find. Look this exact thing up on eBay and see how many of them you find and see how expensive they are. Since people want to tell me that I overinflate the prices of the things that I collect, go and look it up yourself. I encourage you. But if you have the coin to spend, if you got a good bonus check from work, or you've been blessed somehow, you got lucky at the casino, or you got that bonus or whatever, and you want a really good retro game console, and you already have everything else, you have the Super Nintendos, you have the PS1s, the N64s, you have the standard stuff, and you just want something different that's also badass, get yourself a PC Engine, because you cannot go wrong with it. But please take my advice. It is an investment. The good thing about that is it does not depreciate. If you buy one of these, the moment you take it home, it starts to increase in value. So also keep that in mind. You aren't wasting your money if you buy one of these. It will always be worth what you paid, as long as you take care of it and keep it in working order. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review of the PC Engine and PC Engine CD-ROM, and I will see you guys in the next one.